there, I'm Sarah Kolis. Welcome to the Dressing Up podcast, where we talk about all things bridal dresses and general dressing up topics. I love to encourage women to dress up while expressing their personal style with confidence on how to do so. Visit sarahkolis.com to book a bridal alterations fitting, or even inquire about designing the custom couture bridal gown of your dreams. I am so excited to talk to you about this next topic. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of the Dressing Up podcast. This is What is a Bustle? So I'm going to be explaining what that is. If you don't already know, this is when you have a system put into place in your wedding dress that I would sew in, and it's where you take the train of your dress that's dragging behind you, and it gets picked up with a series of loops and ties or buttons, just so it's not dragging behind you at the reception, and makes it easier to dance and move around, weave between the tables, talk to people without having that long train dragging behind you. Okay, so don't be embarrassed or afraid to not know what a bustle is going into your alterations appointment, because typically the only time you ever need to know what a bustle is on your wedding day when you bustle your wedding dress. It's not something you really need any other time of your life unless you're the mother of the bride and you have a train or various other dresses. So I am excited to teach you more about bustles. Of course, if you ever have any questions at all or have other questions about anything dressing up or wedding related, let me know and I can make a whole episode explaining different things. So just let me know if you have ideas or questions. And you can check out my Instagram for examples of these different bustle types that I'm about to start talking about. So I have some reels in there and just different posts. So you can feel free to browse through there before your appointment just to get some ideas. So I do get some brides in that are questioning why you might even want to bustle. And I will talk more about that in a second, but I highly, highly recommend having your dress bustled. You are in this dress for so long, and it's very normal to do this. So I will go through and show you all the options that work for your dress and what works for you during your alterations fitting appointment. Okay, when to bustle. So you typically bustle the dress in between when you are finished doing your formal portrait photos and the reception. So you might be attending cocktail hour. So if you are, you might want to think about, do you want to bustle it before cocktail hour or just after cocktail hour, right before you get announced into the reception? So you can, deciding that is up to you, but I would kind of try to decide exactly when you're bustling before the wedding day hits, because whoever is going to be bustling your dress, you want to make sure that they know where they need to be when they need to be there to bustle your dress. Okay, so if you're deciding on the wedding day, like, oh, I want to actually bustle it before cocktail hour, but so-and-so that learned how to do the bustle, we can't find her. Oh, she was in the bathroom. Oh, now we can't find her. Okay, so just have a plan ahead of time so the person that is bustling knows when and where they need to be. Okay, so there's not all this hoopla going on about trying to physically get it bustled. And that is typically a good timing, because then you'll have your train all the way out for all of your formal photos. And then you will be able to just easily walk around before the cocktail hour, before the reception. Typically, most people I hear will bustle right before the reception. So when they typically announce the whole bridal party, walking into the room, that they announce the new Mr. and Mrs., usually it's like right before that is when you bustle. And that tends to be a good time too, because the whole bridal party will all form together and like be in the back room or the hallway or wherever it is. And you have your people there that need to do the bustle. So that usually does work out pretty well. Who should bustle? Okay, so I have opinions on this. It doesn't have to be your maid of honor. She has a lot of duties throughout the whole engagement process. You don't have to give this to her. You don't have to give it to your mom, unless either of those people are going to be particularly good at this. They have experience bustling other dresses from other weddings, and or they just genuinely seem like the type of person that would be able to handle it and be coordinated enough to be able to get these things in place. So it doesn't have to be those people. I recommend choosing the person in your bridal party or a friend or a family member that is the most capable and able and responsible to do this. Okay, we want the bustle to be successful. It's typically like a very rushed moment in the back hallway
or back room where you're trying to just like get it up and done. And, usually the photographer is not even there. So it's not like it's this like shining moment, like the speeches or something. It is just like a little task that you need someone that is going to be responsible and able to do that successfully. Okay. Instead of trying to force it onto someone that like is just really nervous about it and might not have the full ability to be able to execute it. Okay. And you can bring and should bring that person with you to your second alterations fitting with me. At least it's the second fitting, so that I can teach you how to do that bustle. So that person can be there for that fitting to learn in person, or I am going to have you usually take a video anyway. So you can send her that video if she's not able to come, no problem at all. We'll be sure to still get it so that she can learn how to do it. And something that's been a little popular lately is having a second dress. So if you're changing into a different dress for the reception, that's great. We need to talk about timing. If this dress is truly a reception dress where you are changing into it just before the reception begins, so just before you get announced as the new Mr. and Mrs. and go into speeches and dinner and all that, if you're changing before that, you don't need to bustle your dress. I would just recommend that your second dress is hemmed all the way around. Okay. So there's really no reason to have a train on your second dress. So you should either find a dress that doesn't have a train or cut it off. I know it sounds so scary, but that would be great. But I think the more popular version that's been going around lately would be having a like late night dress. So a super cute, short party, fun dress that you put on late into the night just to be more comfortable and because it's adorable. So in that case, I would still recommend bustling your wedding dress because it seems like that will be the dress that you're wearing for the first dance. So you want to have that nice, pretty dress for your first dance. We got to bustle it so that you're able to move around, do some dancing, and then later change into the second dress. So that works great. I'd still recommend bustling it. Now, let's dive into the different types of bustles. So there's 3 main types of bustles. And again, during your fitting, I will show you all the options that work great for your dress and you can decide from there. So there are dresses that look great with all of the different bustle types. Every way you want to bustle it, it looks great. There are some dresses that are the opposite of that are very much a challenge to bustle and don't always look amazing. And that's fine. We have to remember what a bustle is in the first place. And it's truly for the function. We don't bustle a dress because we like the way it looks bustled. We bustle it because we need it picked up. Functionally, we're able to dance and move around the reception. So again, there are some dresses that don't look so great bustled, but we just need to remember that it's necessary. And then sometimes people I don't advise this, but you could wait until after the first dance is over if you want your pretty photos with the train. Can't do a full-blown choreographed routine that way. But if you're just swaying back and forth, you can wait to bustle it after the first dance if you really want to. I don't love that because then also people start drinking, and who's ever bustling your dress needs to hold off on drinking until after it's bustled. And then, okay, you know how it goes. All right, so types of bustles. Ballroom. Okay, this is where you take the train and everything just sweeps up and underneath. You have this little like bubble at the bottom of your train or bottom of your dress. Everything gets swept up and under. It looks great on satin and Mikado ball gowns, gorgeous. Some super slim styles where you have just like a teeny little short train, usually just like tucking that little thing up and under, looks good. The system in which you put it up is a series of loops and ties that I do a little color coding to help. Ballroom bustles are not the best option for tulle, mesh, netting, or all over lace dresses, because when you tuck it up and under like that, that material will actually collect dirt, and then you'll just get like all this dirt and gunk like physically stuck up in the dress. Obviously, you could get it out after the wedding, but during the wedding, you'll like physically see it in there. So I don't love that. And then it's not great for mermaid styles because you need the room and the space to physically go up into the dress. Of course, with a mermaid style, it depends on how long the train is. So if your train isn't that long, it's not a problem. But if you have a mermaid style with a super long train, ballroom is not for you. Okay. The ballroom bustle, one of the cons to it, the downfall with the ballroom bustle is that your dress will get dirty, as you can imagine, in a weird spot on the dress. So not like you're going to wear the dress again, but if you care about this, if you were to undo the bustle after the wedding, you'll have a dirt spot right kind of in the middle of that train, which isn't cute. But again, are you going to wear the dress again? Not a big deal if not. And then if you are particularly nervous about that, the dirtiness of it, let me know and I can make sure to pick that bustle up even a little bit more off the ground just to prevent that a little bit. Most dry cleaners can get most of that dirt out anyway, but of course, no promises. And then we have the French bustle. So this is one where we kind of go under as well, but it's more in the middle of the train. So it's kind of like this little tuck up into the dress. It's like this little like flap that falls and drapes on the back of your dress. It is vertically center of the back of the dress. I know I'm having a hard time explaining this one in words, but it's where you take the center of the dress and you just kind of tuck it up. So your hemline stays the hemline, and then there's nothing coming up and over the dress. It's just this little tuck in the center of the train. So again, this one is great for the satin Mikado styles. Again, not great for the tulle or all over lace. That is because it is not the most sturdy bustle for those material types. Of course, unless you're having a particularly small wedding or you're just not the type of person that's going to be on the dance floor much, not a problem. Doesn't matter the material type. That will work great. It does really look awesome on satin and Mikado ball gown styles, though. It's so pretty. You can do like a low French, a high French, whatever you want. Looks great. And then crepe dresses with a fit and flare or a mermaid style might need to be a double French bustle if you want this bustle type. So I've done that many times before. It looks great. It is a bit confusing for the person putting the bustle up. So you got to really pay attention. I'm going to color code as best as I can to make it easier for you, but it is a bit complicated and will take a bit more time than a different bustle type. And then our most popular option would be the over bustle. Okay, this is also called the American bustle, and I've lately been hearing it called the traditional bustle. I like to call it the over bustle because that explains what it is, where the dress gets picked up and hooks on over top of the dress. Okay, so this works with most every dress type. It doesn't work great with really short trains. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but it does overall work with almost every single dress type, and brides love this one. It is also most often the easiest to physically put up because there is the least amount of loops. It is the most sturdy bustle, in my opinion. I do think it's just like, it's nice because the bottom, I'm getting too technical here, but the bottom of the loop will be attached to the lining, which is usually the most sturdy fabric. So I like that about this bustle. So if you're going to be dancing a lot on the dance floor, I do try to sway to this option. Okay, so what this bustle is there are going to be a bunch of loops, or depending on your seamstress, you might have hook and eyes or something like that, but I do loops in kind of the center of the train about, and then you take those loops and hook them up to these buttons that will be probably on your waistline, or with a fit and flare dress, mermaid trumpet style, it might be lower than that. Of course, positioning will be important here. So you see, I know some people come in and they're like, oh, that bustle looks like it's coming out of her backside. Okay, I'm not going to do that. So we're going to talk about the best location for you and your dress when we're doing our fitting. Okay. And this one, actually, I love ball gowns. I'm all for them. The ball gown does look great in this bustle as well, especially when you're twirling and it just kind of like flips around nice and pretty. I love that. It photographs really well. Those are our 3 traditional bustle types. There are different options for like a mixture of some of them. In some cases, there's the royal bustle, which is very rare. But again, I will talk through all those things at your fitting and we'll decide together what the best bustle option is for your dress, for you, and for what your wedding is like and how much you plan on dancing. Sometimes I have girls come in and they're like, oh, I definitely don't want a bustle. I just don't like the way that looks. Again, like I talked earlier, it's all about function with the bustle. So I know it sounds like you might be the type of girl that could handle it. Like, you know, I understand that you might be motivated to not want to bustle it. Here's my opinion on that. You can put a bustle in, you can have me sew in a system for a bustle and then just not decide to put it up, that's fine. But at least you have that option. Or honestly, I feel like you're going to want it. You wear this dress all day long for many, 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 many hours, and it can be really annoying over the course of the full day. By the time you get to the point where you're bustling right before the reception, you've done this whole long morning getting ready. You've done the whole ceremony. You've done all these photos. You are exhausted. So I think the last thing you want is to have to hassle with whatever's dragging there behind you. And especially at the reception is when you're most likely going to have it stepped on. So you really would want to bustle that up just to be able to relax and move around a lot easier without worrying about people stepping on it. But again, if you're on the fence about it, we can put a bustle in and then you just don't actually put it up. But I'll bet you're going to want to. Okay. So shoes. Oh, this is such a hot topic in my head. I know it's not actually a hot topic, but something I talk about often. Okay, so what makes the most sense for girls is to wear a high heel for the ceremony and then change to flats for the reception. In theory, that sounds amazing. That makes so much sense. You're nice and lifted up for the ceremony, and then you're comfortable for the reception. That doesn't make sense from a dress fitting standpoint. So I always hem the dress according to the shoes that you're wearing for the ceremony, because that's when it's the most important. The most important part of the day to me is walking down the aisle, and I do not want you tripping. Okay. So I always hem. I mean, if you're going to trip on your wedding day, walking down the aisle is not the moment. So I am very careful about the hem length, and I want to make sure I hem it perfectly for your walking down the aisle moment. And then whatever you do after that, there's going to be some sacrifices made for comfort. So if you're wearing a 3-inch heel for your ceremony, then when you switch shoes for the reception and you go down to a flat, your dress is now 3 inches too long. So it is going to be dragging in the front. Now what you have to decide is, do you want it dragging in the back as well? So think ahead of time before your dress fitting, kind of when you want to switch shoes. So if you're telling me you're not going to switch shoes until late in the night, then I'm going to do the hem to your 3-inch heels, and I'm going to do the bustle to your 3-inch heels, so that when you do your first dance, everything is sitting so perfectly and just barely touching the floor. Now, if you're going to be switching shoes before the first dance, this is when we really got to talk, because you're going to have your 3-inch heel for the ceremony, and then you're going to take off that. So now it's dragging in the front 3 inches too long. I'm going to warn you, your groom's going to probably step on it. You might step on it. But if you're just doing a sway back and forth dance, fine, full-blown choreographed routine, be careful. Okay, so you're dropping that in the front. The back, I can bustle it according to your flats height. So we can get it bustled up to the correct height when you're wearing flats, but just know that the front will now be technically longer than the back. Okay, are you following me here? So if you take your heels off, the front's too long, but I can bustle it so that the back is still picked up. Okay, so that will make it easier to dance. I recommend that whole situation to girls that are going to be tearing it up on the dance floor. Okay, so if you're going to be dancing a lot at your reception, chances are you're probably switching to a flat or a tennis shoe or a slipper or flip-flops or whatever it is, and you're going to be dancing a lot. I'm going to make sure I get that bustle up, okay, because I don't want people stepping on it. And I say this all the time. It doesn't matter if people step on your dress. What matters is when people step on your dress and you don't know they're stepping on it, and you go to walk and something's going to tear. Okay, something's going to rip if you start walking when someone's stepping on your dress. And what happens at a reception? People start drinking and people don't know they're stepping on your dress, and people are dancing and having so much fun with you, and you even step on your dress too and something rips. Okay, so just be careful. I just like to talk through these things during your fitting so I know how to best alter and bustle your dress according to how you want it to function for you at your reception. Okay, I think that was a lot, but if you're following me, you'll understand that I'm just putting it into your brain to just think about the shoes, think about how you want to switch shoes if you're going to. One more thing. Okay, another option on the shoes. Wear your 3-inch heels or whatever inch. And then for the reception, bring a duffel bag full of shoe options. I'm sure you have a 2.5 inch, 2 inch, or 3 inch heel in your closet that might be bright purple. I don't care. No one's looking. At the reception, you can switch into those. They're already broken in. You know that they're comfortable, whatever it is, just to get that height, just to get that dress off the ground. Well, I always say like moving around the blisters, because if you're wearing your ceremonial shoes for like 6 hours, chances are your feet are going to be hurting. So you can switch shoes while still keeping that height. I'm not telling you to go out and buy a whole nother shoe, is my point. Just bring a backup from your closet. Please bring at least one backup from your closet. Every bride, I think, should do that, because if your feet are killing you, that just really sucks that you're going to be uncomfortable during your whole reception. Want to know my opinion on shoes? My full-blown opinion: wear flats the whole day. You will be comfortable and nothing will ever be dragging. It's great. Oh, here's another thing that happens during a reception. Okay, as the bride, I'm going to give you an opinion that's going to sound weird, but clear liquids, drinking clear liquids so you're not spilling on yourself. And if you're a guest at a reception and you are drinking not a clear liquid, if you are drinking red wine, do not bring that glass of red wine anywhere near the bride. Please don't bring it onto the dance floor. Okay. Leave those back at your seat, or drink a clear liquid drink, because that bride's bustle is going to be rubbing on that dance floor all night. And if you have dropped red wine all over it, it's going to get all sucked up in her dress. Oh, you know what I love is dresses that have the big bows, or like a big knot or something big back there. And then it has the tails that hang super long. They are so pretty. Actually, I had one for my wedding, so I am biased, but I love it. And what's going to happen with that bow is that the tails are going to therefore be technically too long once you go to bustle the dress. So in that case, we're going to want to bustle those tails up as well. It usually turns out so pretty and drapey, and it like looks almost just as gorgeous as when it's all laying flat and down. Or the other option I've done before is making those bow ties detachable. So you can talk to me about that to see if that's a possibility with your dress. But just know, if you have those long tails hanging down, those might need some sort of bustle system as well as your dress. Okay, so maybe you have another dress in your lifetime that needs bustles, such as being a mother of the bride or a mother of the groom. That's a totally appropriate time to have a train on your dress. So if you buy a dress that has a train in it, of course you can have it cut all the way around and just hem it up, or leave it down nice and pretty. You are a part of this wedding as well, and we can put a little system in there to bustle your dress as well. It's usually just a quick and easy little thing, not a problem at all. Or as a wedding guest, or even some prom girls might have a little train that you'll want to bustle up. We can add those little bustles into those dresses. I wore a really fancy dress to my in-laws' black tie wedding, so I had a little bit of a puddle train, and I bustled my dress in a sort of French drapey French bustle scenario, and it was so pretty, and I loved that. So it made it easy for me to move around, but then I had the pretty long train for, well, it wasn't that long, a pretty puddle train for the ceremony and before the reception. It was really fun. All right, I'm going to tell you a quick story. Guess who bustled my dress at my wedding? It was me. Oh my gosh, I know. It was me. I bustled my own wedding dress. And then after that, I decided that I need to have brides videotape the bustle being done during the second fitting, because I did teach my 3 sisters and my mom how to bustle it. So now I really hone in and make sure I teach your people very, very well, ask them quiz questions on the spot, and make sure they know how to do that. And I am lying a little bit. I did finish my own bustle, but I did have a few very kind wedding guests. Thank you. Shout out to you for helping me do the couple bustles, but I had to do some of them myself at the end. It was like twisting and breaking my back doing that, but of course it was worth it. But we have technology now, so let's videotape it at your second fitting. So we'll grab someone's phone. You'll videotape me explaining how to do the bustle, and then I'll have you practice on your own during the fitting. And then I always recommend to rewatch that video the day before the wedding, okay? Not the evening of the wedding, not while you're trying to bustle the dress. Just a nice refresher, rewatch the video. Even if you feel confident, rewatch the video the night before the wedding or the morning of the wedding. Oh, another thing, just because we're talking about bustles, as in regards to the train of your dress, there's a couple times you'll have to fluff the train, of course. So I'm going to run through those a little bit. So right before you walk down the aisle, you'll want your train fluffed right before you walk down. That's great when you have a wedding coordinator or a planner or someone there at the church. Just somebody that is back there able to fluff your dress right before you walk down the aisle is great. Or even if your last bridesmaid walking down the aisle could fluff you before you walk down, that could be good too. So you'll just want to do a good fluff before you walk down. And then of course, once you get there and do what you got to do and get into your place at the altar or wherever the location is, you'll have a bridesmaid fluff the dress there as well. So I also like to kind of teach this a little bit at the fittings, as well as particularly your second fitting. If you have people with you, I'm going to just tell them to practice fluffing your dress, because why not? It's a good moment for that. And again, it doesn't have to be like a particular person. I would just do someone that's capable and able. Usually the same person that's bustling is good. And during photos, you will want some train fluffing happening during that as well. When you are walking in between activities during the day, you have bridesmaids for a reason. So I would have them pick your train up and walk with your train if you're trying to cross a parking lot or get to wherever you're going and just trying to get there in a timely manner. Those are also some of my favorite wedding photos. If the photographer is capturing that, it's so cute. One more thing I want to say, you do not have to know what bustle type you want before your first bridal fitting. You can walk into the fitting without knowing what a bustle is. I'm just explaining these things just for fun. And so you kind of have a heads up on what's about to happen during your fittings. But of course, no problem at all. You don't need to decide ahead of time. I will run through all the options with you and we can decide together. But if you have any other questions on bustling, of course, let me know during your fitting or elsewhere. I would be happy to answer them for you. And I look forward to our next episode. Let me know, as always, if you have any ideas on what you want to hear about regarding weddings, dresses, dressing up in general. I'd love to hear those questions and ideas. So thank you so much. See you guys later.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode has allowed you to approach the world with greater confidence in your own personal style. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out through email or inquiry form on the website. I hope you are all ready to go and get dressed up. I look forward to sharing more dressing up tips with you in future episodes. See you there.